Well, great to be here. Are you enjoying the monsoon? All right. We have two guests with us today. We have Nisa Godrej from the Godrej family, and we have Omar Momin, who's been with the Godrej in different roles and capacities since he finished college, I think, right? Right from the beginning? Yeah. Yeah, right from engineering. So, who has the first question?
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. I am Kartik Kumar from JNV Bijnor, Uttar Pradesh. My question to you is, how can we see our nation as a developed country in the future? Does it only depend on the working of government, or can an individual also contribute to it? If yes, then what can I do for that initially? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. And I think that excitement is because of, I think the way you're asking this question, but I think you all really are the future of the country. And I think change, obviously, I think the government plays a huge part in change, but don't forget, we elect the government. So the more educated and thoughtful we are, the better governments we ask for. And it's not just at the central level, state, district levels. I think with the education you all are getting and the effort that you're putting in to get that education and the top schools that you will go to, I think the opportunity for change, I think, if you're going into something like business creates jobs, it creates opportunities. I think you can see what Monish has done here, correct? You create companies, you create wealth, and then you can give back beyond the company also. So I think there are lots of opportunities that an individual can have. I think a lot of you will study science and engineering, again, innovation, coming up with new ways of doing old things can create a lot of change. And yeah, but I think there are two opportunities in life. Obviously, creating this change, creating wealth, creating innovation. But I think the second thing is, do we do it in a moral way? Do we do it with a deep character? And I think that's also the importance of education. So I hope you all are, studying science and engineering very hard, but you're also growing to be good human beings. Because like when we think of things like AI, it's going to really change the world. But, in whose hands it is will depend how that change also happens.
Next question.
My question to you is, what qualities a teenager must acquire to become a successful businessman? Explain by giving your example, what qualities you have acquired to become such a great and successful businesswoman.
Thank you. I don't think I had many of those traits when I was a teenager. So I'm not sure about that. But I think one thing I heard that they've taken away your phones for this year. So I think that's a definitely great start. I don't think there's one set of traits that makes us successful, because we're all quite different and the paths to success quite different. But I think if we look at some of the basic things that, I would say are important is, I think hard work, dedication is really important. So if we want to make something of our lives and of the world, we have to put in the work in the hours, and it takes time to build expertise. You all can see you're doing this 1 year of intense coaching. So I think to become good at anything, we really have to put in the hours and work. I think the second piece is, tenacity, grit, the ability to hold on. And I'm sure lots of you have a lot of it. Life will keep throwing, and I use the word shit at you. And I think the people who are successful, learn how to brush it off, learn how to get up and go again. And then I think this, to me, I think true success is also someone who has good moral character, because I think things like money and all you can make by, sometimes not also having, things like authenticity and trust and integrity. But I think that is very important. People who give, we have an example sitting right in front. Do you give more than you take? When you're here, I know you're all, trying to get the highest marks and, go to these great schools. But I would be very interested to know, the students among you, and I'm sure you know that, who help others along the way, correct? You're coaching your friends along the way, you're taking people with you. So I think that is, that's super important also for success, that you're not only for your own success, you're also dedicated, you have a bigger purpose than yourself. But I didn't have any of these traits when I was a teenager, so I'm sure you all are doing much better than I am.
Hello, ma'am. I am Alok from GBSSS Tikrikala, Delhi. And my question to you is, having interacted with a wide range of individuals across the different fields, what is the single most defining thing you have noticed in the individuals who truly stand out? And what steps can one take to develop that trait personally? Thank you.
It feels like I should be like, this is the secret of success. I wish I had that. I don't. But I think if I look at, people I have come across and what has really stood out to me is, I use this word called spikiness. So what is that person really spiky? And what are they really excellent at? Some of it comes from we have some talent, maybe we're just very musical. And then we really spend the hard work in terms of developing that spikiness. But I think whether it's in business, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in what do you bring to the table that really makes people stand up and notice and brings value to them. So I don't think it's the same thing for everyone, but can you understand what that is in yourself and really develop it? And then because it's so strong, other people can see it. So I think when you see a lot of different successful people in different ways, that really comes back. And, I'm sorry for sounding like everyone's like grandmother and nanny, but I'll come back to the bit on values and moral character. I think that really stands out for me, that when people do what they do with real integrity, correct? I think that's what, he asked about what will shift our country forward. I think those are, and you see it in the history of countries, correct? Who are the people who come and give us a thinking of the future, which is not just about GDP growth or success. That's also very important, but give us a thinking of the future, which brings more justice and equality. And, I think like the people who wrote the Constitution of India, they had those thoughts. They move us forward. So I think both those things, really being spiky and excellent at what you do, but also are you someone with a sense of character and justice that moves those ideas forward also.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to add in terms of my answer to that question actually would be curiosity, right? So I think in this year, you have to focus on your exam and you have to kind of get things done as per what's needed. But once you're through, I think what you will find is that the people who succeed the most are those who are curious about the world, right? So whatever topic you like, you are currently not taught the history of physics or the history of mathematics, right? But when you kind of go out and try and start doing things, try and understand everything you can about whatever you're doing and don't stop being curious. The world is deeply complex, it's huge, and just keep that spirit alive of always wanting to understand whatever is around you as best as you can.
Okay, next question.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. I am Rishika Raj from JNV, Aurangabad, Bihar. My question is, since you have contributed a lot to the society, so could you please suggest us some possible initiative that we as a student can take and give back to the society?
Thank you for that question. I think it, depending what age we are and where we are in our life, there's always opportunities to pass it forward. So, for example, I'm involved in a nonprofit called Teach for India, and they take very, very bright 24, 25-year-olds from some of the best universities and colleges in India, and then they put them for 2 years in government schools, and they call it Teach to Lead. So they hope that, these, what they call Teach for India fellows, will really learn about the system at the ground and, really transform those children's life. But eventually, one of the fellows right now is in the Punjab government working on education. So they have ground reality, but then they go into leadership positions to change things. So, I think there are things like you can do a fellowship, you can dedicate 2 years to doing that. And then, you can have jobs also that really create a change. But I think I can imagine that young people like you must be so inspiring to people just within your communities, within your families, or, I'm sure that they're brothers and sisters and cousins whose lives will change because you've blazed the path beforehand. So I think change, you don't have to start with saying, how will I change India? I hope there's, some future prime minister, finance minister sitting here. But I think it can start in the everyday, correct? Like the gifts that we've been given, what can we do with it? So within our own village, town, in our neighborhood, can we start with, coaching kids there, passing it forward? So I think there's lots of opportunities throughout life. And I think just, think of what kindness you're doing every day, and it starts from there.
Okay, next question.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Arpit Suman from JNV Rajgir, Nalanda, Bihar. And my question to you is, could you please suggest your thoughts that is it possible to establish a financially sustainable and profitable medical setup in India that can provide best medical services to the economically weaker sections at the least possible cost?
You've obviously thought of this more than me. You should answer this question. Is that something you want to do, like as a business?
Yes, ma'am. But I want suggestions financially.
Yeah.
That is it possible financially profitable and sustainable?
Yeah, I definitely, would think so. And I actually think that, both in education and healthcare, with something like AI, there's going to be, a real revolution. And, India's full of people and full of data. So how do we leverage that? How do we build systems and businesses where you bring the cost to serve down for people? And because that's what you need, correct? Scale and efficiency. So it should be possible. And these are like areas that if you're passionate about, there's so much need for it. And if we can bring high quality at accessible prices, that could be amazing. One of the things I always ask Omar is that, one of the products we make is soap. And soap is one of the products that 99% of Indians use. So most Indians get to use high quality soap, and we're able to do it at costs because of efficiency at a price that people can afford. And we sort of talk about why can't we get things like education and healthcare at more affordable prices, and unfortunately, the government has not been able to solve for some of these things. But can private entrepreneurship
Yes.
play a role in it? Correct, either using some government infrastructure or completely separately also.
So there is an organization called Arvind Eye Care, and there is a book about them that you can look up and read. But the insight that they had in terms of how they make this happen, which is eye care at scale for everyone, despite being profitable, is because when you do surgeries or procedures at huge scale, you not only do it at a low cost, but you build such high levels of expertise in the surgeons who are doing it that even the rich people want to come there. And then you have two kinds of models where the rich people pay for the expertise and the poor people get it almost free. And in total, it still is a sustainable setup. So you might want to read more about them.
So that book is called Infinite Vision. So I'll just give you a couple of stories from the book just to help you understand. In the Arvind hospital, I visited that hospital a few years back with my mom and my daughter with a nice trip. They have two entrances. One entrance is free, one entrance is paid. And Arvind doesn't tell you which entrance to go. You decide. And they do not ask any questions. Like Dakshina asked a lot of questions. What is your income? What is this? What is that? They ask no questions. If you are a rich person and you want to have a free surgery, you can go to the free side. The surgeon in the middle who is doing the surgery is the same for both sides. But on the free side, you cannot go with a family member. You have to go alone. There are no chairs, you sit on the ground. So some difference is there, but the surgery, there is no difference. And what Dr. V did is one time he was visiting the United States and he noticed that in McDonald's, the restaurant, all this food was prepared with no chef. There's no chef in McDonald's. They have taken some person, trained them for 4 or 5 days, and the person is producing whatever food they are giving. Because what they have done is they have a standard process. How do you produce French fries? How do you produce a sandwich? How do you do this? How do you do that? They train the person to do that, and that person starts producing. That's all they can do. So what he did in Arvind Eye Care, he said, doctor ki kya zarurat hai? So he looked at every single part of the process for doing a cataract surgery, and he eliminated the doctor in 80% of the stuff that other places were using a doctor for. And they put 2 beds in the same room for the doctor. When the doctor is working on one patient, the second patient is being prepared by the nurses. Then the microscope moves over to the other side, and then this patient goes and they bring the next patient. Every 8 minutes, the doctor is doing a new surgery. The number of surgeries a Arvind Eye Care doctor does, I mean, in the US, a doctor will do 4 or 5 cataract surgeries in a day. This is like 5 or 6 an hour, or 7 an hour. And they might do 50, 60 surgeries in a day. So obviously the cost is coming down. There's another model, which is Narayana model. They actually are funding part of what Dakshina is getting. They're getting some money from Narayana. And they did the same thing for heart, different things related to the heart. So I think that if you study the Arvind model, you can even visit there. That model actually can be replicated for every body organ. Bahut scope hai. All the best. Okay.
Yes.
Next question.
I just had something to add to that also. I think the opportunity also in doing something like medical care is, I think, one of the things India, we don't have enough medical care, but we also don't have enough jobs. So if you can do some of these things successfully, you can create a lot of scale. And I just had an example of someone I know really well, actually a family member. The sister is American, and she told her, you're wasting so much time in America going in circles because of their insurance system, how the doctors
Yeah.
sending you. Why don't you come to India for 2 days and you can do all your tests in Bombay and in a hospital and you'll be finished in a day. And I think what's beautiful about this Arvind Eye Hospital is that there's paid and then there's free, correct? So on one side, you can make money, which can go to subsidize the other side also. And the problems are there for rich people also, like if someone's coming from New York. So I think in medical, beyond just serving people, you can, create jobs and you can create a lot of financial value also. So good luck.
Our former president, Dr. Kalam, accidentally went into the free section at Arvind. He went to get his cataract surgery. He didn't understand about the entrances. He just walked in and his procedure was done on the free side, sitting on the floor and all that. He was very happy. He had no issues. Worked well. Next question.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Parmar Javis Deepak Kumar. I am from JNV Panchmahal, Gujarat. My question to you is, to what extent should we consider our peers and others' advice while taking career decisions? Additionally, could you please share some tips for learning financial management while still being in college? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your question. I think, listening to people who've gone ahead of you, getting advice, networking to find out what opportunities are there are very important. But I would say listening to your own heart and your own knowing inside is even more important, correct? Because a lot of times you will be told, this is not possible for you. But no one can tell you what is possible for you. You don't know what's possible for you without trying. So I think it's very, very important to have a network, to have mentors, to take advice. But eventually, if you want to go far, you have to go with other people. But that inner drive, that inner knowing, or that inner courage also, because don't forget that we will fail as we go along in life. But I think you have to listen to your inner voice. Yeah.
Next question.
I am Khushi from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar SOSC, Karol Bagh in Delhi. Since you studied abroad, you must have interacted with the students there. What difference do you observe between the students in other countries and students in India? Are there any good practices and qualities from abroad that we as an Indian students can adopt to improve ourselves?
Culturally, we might be different, but we're all human beings. So eventually, you can learn about a lot of different cultures, but fundamentally, we have many similarities. I think from an education system, I think there's a lot to learn. And I think Omar spoke about curiosity. I don't know whether we should be sharing this in the year that you have to be focused and studying. So maybe next year after you all get into IIT or after you graduate. But no, I think what he was saying in terms of curiosity is that I think the Indian system is very focused on your grades and marks and things like that, which is also very important. But I think, studying abroad, what you realize is that they broaden your mindset a lot. And, there's a lot of value in subjects like learning about history and, comparative literature. And so there's a lot of value given to that. And I think as you get older, what you sort of realize is that being a well-rounded human being, so being, excellent at your subject and excellent at engineering, but, also having an understanding of the world, because, if you look at something like history, you say it might not be applicable today, like engineering is applicable today, but it's very applicable because we keep making the same mistakes over and over again in history, correct? And the people we vote into leadership and things like that. So I do think it's what Omar was saying, it's curiosity. But I think that comes from, I really think these phones and social media and, they've been built so you get addicted, and that people like us can then advertise our products to you once you're addicted on those phones. So I think if you really think about your day-to-day life, I don't think you need an education abroad or people from abroad to influence that. Are you reading enough books? Are you growing your mind in other ways besides just what you're studying in your curriculum? And, today the world is available to us. All the information is out there. So, maybe it's thinking every year, what 2 new subjects that I deep dive into that I'm interested in, how many books did I read this year? And I think you get that broadness from that.
Next question.
Good morning. I'm Simran from JNV Pathankot, Punjab. And my question to you is that, who is your role model in your life?
Who is my role model? Oh, I've had many role models in my life. Maybe I'll talk about my father. because he's the most. Omar also knows him really well. I think my father was is a role model for me because for a few reasons. I think one was just very deep, like deep integrity. So, I remember even if you even in business, it didn't matter whether there was a contract signed or not, correct? There was always the principles of how you're fair to everyone on both sides, people who work with you, people you're negotiating with. So this very high sense of to keep your word, correct? Like your word is stronger than any contract. Just his discipline and hard work. It was amazing to see that someone, and discipline is about the everyday, correct? That you wake up and that you sort of put in that work every day, and just a lot of humility, no ego. So, I think, yeah, I learned a lot from him. But I think he used to tell me that, at waking up, like going to bed every night, and you can sleep peacefully when you know you've always done the right thing that day, correct? So this sense of how important integrity is to your own peace and to what you put out in the world. Yeah. And for all the men here, and maybe for the women also, he was a real gentleman and a real feminist. So I'm very lucky as a woman, especially in a country like India, which can be quite patriarchal, that I grew up with a very feminist and egalitarian father. So I didn't realize that when I was younger, because I thought all families would be the same. But as I get older, yeah. But I'm going to stop now because I could talk about him for a while. And then I might start crying also. But
I think we can do one more last question.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. I'm Suraj Bhartia from JNV Gandhinagar, Gujarat. And my question to you is, how does the Indian education system different from that developed countries such as the USA, UK, China, and Russia? What key reforms are most needed in our education system to ensure meaningful progress? Thank you.
yeah, thank you for that question. I think at the higher levels, if you look at the IITs and some of our the best schools in India, I think the quality of education would be extremely, extremely high. I don't think we have the kind of research at universities that you do abroad, although I think Trump is trying to do away with that now in countries like the US, which is very unfortunate because a lot of research, whether it's in the sciences, in engineering, comes out of universities and then actually in medicine and then has been commercialized by companies in developed countries. I think where we've really failed ourselves and our children is in our primary and secondary government education. I think in more developed countries, you actually get literate and properly educated. So I think that really is a problem for us to solve. I think 60% of India is now private 50%, even these low-cost private schools, but their outcomes are not much ahead of the government. So I think that is both a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, which that we do need to solve.
All right. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nisa. It was wonderful. And thank you, Omar.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to meet all of you. And thank you for preparing these questions and asking them so kindly. Thank you.
Okay.